Welcome everyone. My name is Brian Seidel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Website Pipeline, the publisher of CIMcloud. You are attending the State of the Company webinar for 2018 at the State of the Company agenda. Just a quick recap on the agenda. I'm going to do a little product vision recap, really just to let you know where our R&D dollars are going and where our head's at and where we're driving the company and the CIMcloud platform. I'm going to talk about what CIM is, just as a recap for those of you that don't know or may be confused by that. That's Customer Interaction Management, which is the software category we live in. I'm going to talk about why we think CIM is better. Then we're going to go into part two, which is the highlights of 2018. I'm going to talk through some of the good and the bad and the ugly of 2018, and then talk about what's coming and what we're excited about in 2019 from an R&D perspective. And then the last topic we're going to hit is what we call a health check in our customer IQ. The IQ stands for Interaction Questionnaire, but this is basically an assessment tool and a discovery process to help you along your journey in optimizing your customer interactions wherever you are on that journey. And we know we've got a lot of existing customers and prospective customers and partners on the call. We welcome all of you guys here. And again, feel free to ask questions in the chat menu, but we've got lots to cover, so we're going to keep it rolling here. The first thing is product vision. We're going to talk about what is CIM. CIM is a new software category. We invented the category because we saw a need in the market for it. It stands for Customer Interaction Management. Not that the software world needed another acronym, but we threw another one in there. And basically the parts of CIM are e-commerce. That allows your customers to self-service. CRM, which is a well-established software category. It stands for Customer Relationship Management. But that is a tool that is very frequently used by B2B companies for employee productivity or to improve employee productivity and accountability. There's a Cloud Data Hub component. I'm calling that for app connectivity, but that's basically to connect the platform with other platforms, say marketing automation platforms or other e-commerce platforms you have or whatever they are that are out there in the cloud. And then WCM and PIM, two more acronyms. It stands for Web Content Management and Product Information Management. Those are basically just content management tools that are typically involved in product-centric companies like most of you are, retailers, distribution, and manufacturing companies. And then the ERP Sync is another part of the platform. So CIMcloud is Website Pipeline's, that's our platform name for our CIM platform. And one thing, in case you're confused by this, if you are a longtime customer, first of all, thank you for your continued business. We very much appreciate it. You are on the platform already. You probably should consider a version upgrade if you haven't had one in a while or a long time. We've got some options to do that, and I'm going to talk to that here to get access to the latest tools on the platform. But we did build everything that you see branded as CIMcloud is an extension of our long-standing e-commerce platform. We just started building more and more CRM capabilities in. So this is a recap of the software categories that are included and the audiences you'll see that use CIMcloud. So again, it integrates with your ERP system. We've been doing that forever. Employees access it, customers access it. The conversations or communications between employees and customers, we've got ways to log and track those to give full visibility. And then apps through the Cloud Data Hub can access it as well. So this is just a visual depiction of those software categories. I'm not going into demos on today's call, but I will open up opportunities for anyone that wants to see a demo to reach out to our sales teams, our account management, and our account executive teams. They'd be happy to demo any of the stuff that you're seeing here. This is just a screenshot of the B2B Ecommerce platform for customers. This is a cut of what the B2C e-commerce platform might look like. Again, same platform, but the product catalog is much more centric in a B2C cut versus the B2B. This is a screenshot of what you might see as a CRM user logging in for employee productivity, and we'll get into some more details and some features on that. There's no really way to depict a Cloud Data Hub or an API. This is just a screenshot from documentation. So if you're a developer, you might recognize some of this stuff. And then this is a cut from our content management system, or our control panel, which is where your web content and product information is managed, as well as a whole bunch of settings that drive the platform that don't already sync from the ERP system, or that the ERP system doesn't have data for. All right, so next part of this is, why is CIM better? So I'm going to talk through a few slides. First thing, if you want to understand why CIM's better, or where our head's at, is to understand what we believe the goal is. And the driving goal behind our product and investment is to help you grow your sales without having to grow your headcount. So if you look at the end game is to drive your net profit up. If you're a product-centric company, as the overwhelming majority of our customers are, gross profit is a key thing that you're trying to drive up, and you're trying to do it without proportionately driving up your customer-facing payroll. So the key there is to increase your yield per full-time employees, so you can keep and grow customers and interact better, faster, and cheaper. So the goal is to grow sales and to see if you can do it without growing headcount. When we talk about customer interaction management, this is what we mean by customer interactions. I'm not going to go through everything on the screen you see here, but on the left you see who interacts. You've got customer service reps, sales reps, AR collections people. You've got the different topics, which is basically your products and content, account info, and then your quote to cash plus returns processes. And there's examples or questions that are coming in all day long that your employees are in the middle of. Ultimately, these fall into three buckets. In our mind, one is employee activities. That's conversations or interactions with your employees. One is online activities. That's how they interact with you digitally. And the third one is the transaction bucket, which is typically what lands in your ERP system. If you look at keys to increasing yield per payroll dollar spent, there's a few do's and don'ts in here. The key here is, if you're not already on your platform, our platform, you're probably in a scenario where your employees are in the middle of all customer interactions through phone, fax, email, and meetings. The goal is to put the tool in the middle and get your employees out of the middle so your customers can self-service. And of course, you've got customers maybe from just time and adoption, or maybe younger generations, that fit into three buckets: ones that are demanding self-service tools, some that are willing to do it, and then some that will be resistant. So we target first on the demanded and willing guys. Those are the easiest ones to get adoption out of. But the key is, you've got to get your employees out of the middle, but you got to keep them in the know so they have access to everything, and allow them to be proactive, switch their time from reactive to proactive, and build in accountability so you can get a better feel for what your employees, where they're spending their time, and what lift they're getting with the time. Your choices today, you've got a few different ones. The most popular one is this is to grow sales without headcount, is what we call the divide and cluster strategy, which is start implementing different platforms like e-commerce, or maybe multiple e-commerce platforms, a CRM platform, a help desk. We find that to be problematic in two ways. One is when you consider that most companies on this call are B2B, or have heavy dependencies on their ERP system, their Sage or Microsoft Dynamics system, to run their business, and the data that's in there, that any platform you implement has to have some level of integration. If you have B2B, it's got to have a heavy level of integration with your back-end ERP system. So implementing the platform and get it to do what you want it to do, if you have two platforms like a CRM and e-commerce, it's actually 4 times the work, because you got to close the functional gaps in the platform to get the capabilities, and you got to close the data gaps with the sync. And it's difficult enough to do it with one platform, much less two. The second one is on your left here, is the whole concept of collaboration and adoption. If you don't have your employees and customers using the same tool, your employees are less likely to promote it to the customers, because they don't understand the tools that your customers are using. So if they're not using the e-commerce platform that your customers are using, they don't understand it. The second thing is, if a customer calls for a quote, for example, if your employees aren't using the platform to create a quote and kick it over, your customers are no closer to adoption on each instance that happens than they were the time before. If it's all in the same platform that customers can self-service in, your employees can still do provide full service, but gradually get the customers to adopt, because they're delivering the quote in this example as an unfinished shopping cart that the customer can then interact with and place an order. So that concludes kind of the overall vision, or just setting a high level tone. Now we're going to talk about some highlights of 2018 and then move into part 3, which is what's coming in 2019. First of all, a big thank you to all of our existing customers and partners that are on the call. We did have another record year in 2018 that we're closing out right now. We already know it to be a record year, so thank you very much for that. We are maintaining strong revenue growth and also good customer diversity. I think our largest customer last year was less than 2% of our total revenue, which is an important stability indicator for us and should be for you as well. We did obviously have some challenges and growing pains, as many of our existing customers know. Two notable ones were we had some infrastructure stability problems, particularly around second quarter 2018. We believe we've stabilized those, and we've got significant investments underway, which I'll talk about in 2019, to future-proof infrastructure. There's also, we've had some services delivery rough spots related to technical support, our upgrade process of quoting and scoping upgrades, and then implementation of projects. And there's been lots we've done and are still doing. As you see in the reorganization piece, it's a work in progress. So we apologize for any hiccups or any problems that have occurred in the past as a result of that. And we do assure you we take these things very seriously and are working expeditiously to invest the time and labor into smoothing things out to deliver a better quality of service, both from a platform standpoint and continue to do that, as well as the professional services that we're offering for support and upgrades. So the goal of our reorganization, we actually reorganized, set up several different new teams, a breakout account management team, a sales engineering team, and a team just handling version deployment. We've expanded our technical support team with more in-house developers. These are all in our headquarters here in Greenville, South Carolina. And we've added more to the leadership team, particularly people with specific industry experience in professional services and project management that are helping us get a more standardized regimen. So the goal there is to improve quality and timeliness of our services. We've also been implementing for the last several quarters an operating system into our business. For any of those familiar, it's called Traction, or based on the book called Traction, it's called the Entrepreneur Operating System. That's set up for 10 to 250 people companies, and we're seeing lots of operational gains from that. Some new features here, just getting into some new stuff that came live in 2018. We did implement an enterprise search that works in conjunction with SQL Server. That's the underlying database running the platform. It uses a technology called Solar, but it's a more Google-style matching. It is a more involved and elaborate setup to get it there. But if you do it and it makes sense for you, it does involve faster and more Google-style matching, improved type ahead, the faceted or narrowing of the search has lots of additional capabilities, and it's set up to support really large product counts. We've got some basic contract pricing support in this search tool, and we're adding more or expanding that in the future. And again, if you have any questions on any of these features or want to see them or weren't aware of them, our teams are available to get into a specific discovery and demo process with you. There's no charge at all for that. We'd be happy to do it. The second thing, this is in the CRM tool set, is what we call timeline tracking. And the vision of this is having one source for all of your history data. So what we call timeline is any touch your customer experienced, whether it was online, offline, transactions from the ERP, which is data we already have, any conversations that your employees have with customers via ticketing. We've got email parsing tools that you can CC or forward emails to, other different offline conversations, phone calls, meetings, face-to-face meetings. And then the last group is employee time spent. So this is when your employees are spending time on a customer, maybe doing quotes or preparing invoice things or whatever, being able to log that activity so you could see a full history of what happened with your customer from a timeline standpoint. And we are working to tie those towards scorecard metrics so you can look at employee time spent and put effectively point values on that, or tie it to metrics, both from activity and a results standpoint, to help out with gamification and also accountability and productivity. Some new features, this is the ticketing or case management or help desk system. It's all kind of the same thing. You're seeing some screens here of a customer placing a ticket on your site. They can also send an email and it'll auto log the ticket, and then a screen where your employees might manage that ticket via the web to assign it to a person or different work queues and make sure those inbound requests from customers are getting addressed. This is a cut of the ticketing system of seeing a conversation workflow that's going on a specific ticket. And you could see the conversation that the customers got one cut of it, and employees have a more advanced cut where they can update workflow statuses on the ticket and also provide internal commentary as well. So that is a typical ticketing or case management system, and we do have customers using that now. And you're welcome to be one in the beta group trying that if you're interested. Quote management. This is basically a single platform. I mentioned quotes earlier in the progressive adoption piece. But this leverages all the catalog, pricing, inventory, cart, ordering engines, tax, shipping, coupons, promos, the stuff that we've had long-standing in the e-commerce platform. We just put a more advanced window in it for your reps to be able to use to both initiate quotes or interact with customers on quotes that either your rep or the customer initiated. A quote to us is just an unfinished order, which is the same thing as a saved shopping cart. They're all the same thing. We've just put more advanced customer interfaces or sales rep interfaces on it and ways for your customers to ask for help. So if you look in the customer screen in the cart checkout on the left, you can see there's options for them to submit an order. They can either save it or submit it to a sales rep for help. That actually just places a ticket in our ticketing system. So your sales reps can then, or employees can take action on it. They can get in and modify that quote, edit pricing, and communicate right back to the customer through the system. And it logs it all as part of the timeline. But more importantly, it's helping them place the order, which ultimately syncs right into your ERP system as part of our standard platform. Another key piece that we've been beefing up, we've had this data all along, is giving you more exposure to the online usage of your platform that your customers are doing. So we're logging who and what accounts and what keywords they search for. We've got the overall session. We're working on getting full visibility into the session and everything they did. Things like product page views, abandoned carts are there, and there's more coming to get into the kind of the big brother mode of seeing what they're doing. Another piece is we've made lots of investment on the underlying version deployment platform. This was a very large project that went on below the surface here. And the end result for you is this is platform level versioning of new versions of our software, making it easier and less risky to do version upgrades. And our classic versioning right now has customization capabilities, but the customizations are embedded inside of the code with the platform. We have separated customizations out. So your waterfall was an attempt at the word cascading, by the way, on the PowerPoint. But we have basically built a cascading customizations framework where customizations are separate from the core code, so the core code can be updated with less risk and faster and without detangling the customizations. Any customizations, of course, would have to be tested and vetted and possibly modified to make sure they still comply with the standard platform, but it makes it a lot easier. In the future, we're driving towards third-party developer support. That has all been built in mind with this version deployment system to be able to open up to in-house or third-party developers that you may want to use to customize the platform. The last thing is we've been continued work on ERP data and improving sync accuracy. The screen you're seeing here is an account balance reconciliation, which is one of several reports we do to reconcile on a wholesale level the data that's syncing from the ERP and report back and correct. All right. We're moving on now. We're transitioning out of 2018, and there was lots more done in 2018. Those were just some of the highlights into what's coming in 2019. So I do have some prototype stuff that I'm going to show you some screenshots of that's product feature. One key thing here, this slide is talking through some of the low-level stuff that's hard to show a picture of. Services delivery is still on top of mind right now, and doing things to improve the quality and timeliness of our responses for all our customers. I've been on several phone calls with customers as well as other leadership teams where we've had some rough spots with services deliveries. And again, I apologize if that's been you. That is not our standard expectation, and it's certainly not one that we have built a company around historically. So anywhere you've seen rough spots, we have been doing things from an organization standpoint to keep up with the growing pains and try to get ahead of them with additional resources and better team definition. So you will see more non-billable customer-facing resources come in 2019. Improve professional services billing and status reporting, make it easier to understand our billing and status reporting on projects. Improve PM processes. This is new leadership that we brought in to help on the PM side and get a more regimented PM process for projects that are undergoing. Things like status reporting and change control are at top of mind for priorities. We do have a new designated team we'll be starting in 2019 just focused on training programs and tools for our customers. And we'll be expanding our R&D teams, which we have continued to do throughout the history of our company. From an infrastructure standpoint, we've made significant additional capital upgrades. Those are already in progress. Money is spent, equipment arrives, some of it's been installed, and you'll see more installations going on through first quarter 2019 to provide a better, more stable, faster platform as we move forward. Tech stack versioning. You're going to see us working with customers to convert from our classic versioning to our latest versioning system. And looking into the future, you're going to see us drive towards an API first and a methodology. If you're not a developer, it probably doesn't mean anything to you. But we will be making continued steps to open the code base as we move forward. The other thing that we're working on is improving our ability to educate our customer and share best practices that we see across our entire customer base. Lots of you guys look the same to us from a product-centric standpoint. You have the same types of challenges and same types of things that you're doing. So we believe we're in a really unique and interesting position to help share best practices to help you grow sales without having to add headcount proportionately. So that 8 steps I'm going to hit on in part 4 of this conversation or introduce that. For product features, this is just a rattle list of features that you can take a look through. We're going to be doing a lot more with lists, expanding on the ticketing platform, getting into what we call tasks and to-dos, but this is private, standard lists, checklists, campaign style tasks like AR collections things maybe, or customer care, quarterly calls, things like that. Opportunity and lead tracking is underway. Scorecarding and goal tracking. This is having a very flexible way to scorecard employees and or customers against goals or metrics that you've got. Custom tables and fields is on the radar for 2019. And then again, looking forward in the future, the open API to further allow for integrations with any ERPs. We have some customers that love our platform and are switching out of ERPs that we currently support. So we're looking at opening the API up to have a standard way to integrate any ERP into the platform. Marketing platform integration, specifically MailChimp and HubSpot, are on the radar. And then maturing doing continued investments on a lot of the things that you're seeing here that are already in play and available. But we know there's additional things we can do to improve the quality and richness of those capabilities. Just looking at some visuals here. This is some screenshots of opportunity tracking that's a work in progress. These are prototype screenshots. The platform's actually being built, so I'm sure it's going to look a little different than this, but just giving you an idea on what's coming for opportunity and lead tracking. This is prototypes that's being built for scorecards. This is going ahead of, if anyone's familiar with the dashboard or stats metrics on the CRM side, this is adding goal values to them and a lot more flexibility on what stats can be tracked, and also a history. So if you're looking at a current employee's sales numbers, this is an inaccurate depiction you're seeing down below. You might see that they were in the yellow on the current month and the green last month at 65,000, and then see a graph or history of their last 13 periods of how they've been trending on scorecard metrics. So lots more on that we could talk through, and would love to have dialogue on that. That's a scorecard system we use internally, by the way. We dog food all of that. All right, so looks like we're right on time here. The next section here is the health check. And again, I'm going to pause for a second. I know I'm talking fast and covering a lot of content, but feel free to throw questions into the chat pane in your GoToWebinar menu. If you have any questions, we've got people here that are vetting those as people are typing them in. So last section here is the health check and customer IQ. Again, the purpose of this is it's a 3-step strategic planning process. If you are a long-time existing customer, you can go through this process. We call the overall process the customer IQ, which derives from step 2 you're seeing and what's involved in step 3, which is the customer interaction questionnaires. But it starts with the first step is a customer interaction health check, and I'm going to go through some screens here. Might as well hit those now. So the first step is your health check. This health check, and you're seeing if you want to study and read a few questions, there's a snippet there of 5 of the 20 questions. You basically self-rate on this health check. It takes about 5 minutes to complete, and you rate yourself on a score of 1 to 5, top score being 100, and the scale that you're seeing over on the right. If you're less than 40, there's lots of opportunities, but that's not untypical. 40 to 60 is fairly typical. 60 to 80 plus is extremely good, or getting into a really good scale. 80 plus is extremely good. I would say most people, if they haven't done a health check like this before, most companies are going to be less than 40 or somewhere in the 40 to 60 range on the health check. The best practice on this health check, because it's fast, and if you want to get engagement from other leaders or stakeholders within your company, is take it and champion it yourself. So fill it out yourself, but get each person on your leadership team, particularly people that are in customer-facing roles like head of sales, head of account management, head of marketing, things like that, the CEO, your operations person, have them fill it out. And it's quick, and then you as the champion compile the results, and then we would love to see those compiled results back to have discussions with you and talk through next steps and possible prioritization. But it starts with this health check, so I strongly encourage everyone on the call to go through this process. You will find it, even if you don't have a single phone call with us after the health check, which we certainly welcome and want, you will find it to be very revealing. The second thing is the customer IQ. And we have a series of IQs. It gets into probably 25 or 30 pages of questions if you do all of them. This first one is what we call the short IQ that I would start with. That's a couple, 2 or 3 pages of questions. It's going to take 1 to 2 hours to complete. This one I would recommend just one person completing it and then asking other people or digging into your ERP or other spots to get the data. But it basically is going to break down high-level company info, customer segments, the way you talk about or think about your customer and their revenue splits and transaction splits and what they're doing with your products, customer-facing employees, so basically an org chart of the people that are interacting with customers and what they're doing, a breakdown of your products and product info, and then it's getting heavy into your transactions and your overall processes with transactions, which goes from quote to cash plus returns. So this is a really good high-level assessment that will help you prioritize your next steps along the journey of optimizing your customer interaction. So again, even if you've been a long-standing customer on our platform, there is always opportunities to increase capabilities and or increase adoption on the capabilities that you already have across your customers and employees. So the ultimate end game is to try to get all of the capabilities that you need available online so your customers can self-service for 100% of them. If you do that, you have achieved what Amazon calls their normal operating mode. But they are certainly setting the bar out there for customer self-service when you're interacting with customers. We believe our job is to help you guys get to that state and provide a tool set and capabilities to do it. The third step is once you get through the IQ, actually goes through more what we call deep dive IQs. So that's getting into the beyond the 3-page IQ. For example, if you find out, if you determine quotes as a priority, we have a whole IQ that you can go through just on the quoting process to map that out. We have one that's just on the RMA process. If you use product configurator, we have one just on product configurator. So those are examples of deep dive IQs. This will get into more of a 4 to 8 hours plus to complete. It gets into the deep dive IQs. and it gets into putting together a set of phased goals for each step in this 8-step journey of optimizing your customer interactions. So there's 2 parts to this. One is gaining capabilities, and there's a lot of built-in capabilities to our platform. There may be capabilities you have outside of our platform. That's all fine. But one is making sure you have the capabilities to optimize your customer interaction. And the second thing is making sure you're gaining adoptions by both customers, and that's looking at them by segment, and workers that I'm generically calling employees or independent contractors, other people that work for you by role, and then managers. So that's the underlying intent of the 8-step journey. So when you look at that as a summary, again, this whole strategic planning process starts with the health check, then goes through the summary IQ, and then gets into specific planning, and that we believe equals lots of opportunities to improve your business and drive towards growing sales without having to proportionately grow your headcount. All right, so your next steps on strategic planning. If you're interested in this or want any of the documents, contact us. We'll welcome any form of contact, call, email, contact us form, live chat, submitting a ticket in the ticketing system, whatever mechanism you want. We'll send you the first 2 forms, which is the health check and then the customer IQ, the short IQ form. And there's lots of you customers we've gone through. You've seen some of these things in the past, particularly that short IQ form. So we may already have a head start on that IQ form that we could work with you on. That we've got the intel or data, but fill that out. The goal is to reveal things to yourself and to also help structure communications with us. You complete the forms and send them back, and then we will set up calls to review the results, cover additional and send additional deep dive IQs, and discuss next steps. There is a stage in the on step 3. Let me go back a couple slides here. When we get to step 3, there may be some billable sales engineering and discovery work or detailed planning work that we get into. We would cover that with you ahead of time. If there was billable stuff, you'll know and understand if it's billable and why it's billable. We haven't had a problem with that getting into the consulting there, and we'll bring consultants or other technical resources in to help with some of the planning as needed, but that would all be optional. The goal here on the phase plan is to take a step back on this overall process to look at the big picture and consider it. So you got a vision and direction of where you're going. Identify what the next step or 2 are that you need to focus on by capabilities and or adoption, and then park the rest. So knowing that it's out there, it's not getting forgotten, but so it can be revisited later. So that's the concept behind the strategic planning process. And again, next steps, contact us and we get you those forms. There's no charge for that. All right, it looks like we're running about 5 minutes ahead of time. We had scheduled for about 40 minutes of content. We got it through in about 35 minutes. I'm sure no one will complain about that. So if there's any questions, we do have some time for some Q&A here. And I'll give, it looks like we've been curating some questions. We got a few here. All right. Okay, one question here is, what happens to my CIMcloud platform if I upgrade to a new version of Sage? So Sage happens to be this customer's ERP system. That's a great question. The answer is probably minimal needs to happen with the CIMcloud platform. Most upgrades on the ERP system don't involve big data structure. So some on occasions do. So the answer is it depends on the version, but most of them are pretty straightforward. We do like to get notice before you make an upgrade so we can be on standby, or if the version you're moving from or to, our ERP specialists here, our ERP integration specialists know what needs to happen. But very typically that's less than 4 hours of work or less than 8 hours of work on our side to do it. Sometimes it's a non-event because there literally is minimal stuff. Another thing I'll point out, and we do have a questionnaire that you can fill out if you have a version upgrade that will start that process. So I would encourage you to contact our support or account management team on that. One key takeaway is make sure you tell us before the upgrade. The phone calls on Sunday afternoon when you did an ERP switch are not desired. We'll take them and we'll support you, but we love getting that ahead of time. All right. All right, I'm just reading a couple questions here. When will WebDriver get an upgrade, particularly in managing product images and categories? This is a huge pain for us. Thank you for the feedback. Our product, we do have our product managers on the call, and they do have web content management upgrades, significant upgrades planned for 2019. One is we're reorganizing all of the navigation, and we're structuring that and building it in the CRM navigation. We do have ways to separate it so the setter-upper people and the content managers have a separate navigation. So we have logged who was on the question there. If you have inputs, we'd love to get you in touch with our product managers, particularly on your image and data uploads. We'd love to get that feedback. But we do have product team resources and investment resources allocated towards web content management upgrades in 2019. So that's a great question, and one that we would love to work with you on if you're willing to give us specific feedback with the product team to make sure they're addressing what you're looking for. You got another one? Okay, one is just, can you send us a copy of your PowerPoint pages or put it on your website? You went fast. I'd like to digest this information. Absolutely, great question. We will post the PowerPoint and make that available to all attendees, as well as we have recorded this presentation, and we will make the recording available as well. So we'll send a follow-up via email on that, but that is no problem. Another question here is, does CIM provide support for transition from a hosted Sage to a cloud-based version of Sage? So I want to answer that as a loaded question. Depends on the version of Sage that you're on, but if that would be a specific question that I would look at what your exact situation is. The spirit of it is it shouldn't matter where Sage is living from our standpoint. To be able to do the integrations with, as long as there's not material changes to the underlying infrastructure, the data structure, we're hitting at that level. We do hit some of the business objects, so it depends on which Sage ERP platform you're talking about. But I would defer that question to our ERP integration specialist to talk through specifics to make sure we get you an answer on that. Let's see. You got another one? Go ahead. Okay. We utilize Sage and Sage CRM. When a customer processes an order through the web portal, is there a way to collect this data with CRM? Currently collects in the ERP system, but not in our CRM. So that's a good question. The customer processing an order through the web portal, typically a CRM integration, a third-party CRM integration with the ERP would pull that data back out. We do have an API layer on our side that we can offer a RESTful style API. So we actually sync all of the order data from Sage, not just the stuff that we feed in. We sync all of the order data as well as all the invoice data, the shipment data, the payment data. All of those can be available through an API. So one option is we could open up a RESTful style API, and you could hit that API and pull the data into your CRM, either by moving the data or just calling the API and displaying the data in the CRM and discarding it. So that would be work on your CRM or your partner side on the CRM side. There is some other possibilities there of using our cloud-to-cloud sync tool to sync stuff in, or potentially even using our ERP driver sync tool, depending on where Sage CRM, if that's on-premise in the same network. So that would be a good question to bring up to the account management team, and we could have our sales engineers get involved with your specific application to know. Okay, I got a question here. Any plans to address long page load times? So we do have some page load time issues on certain pages in the application, and it also depends on specific data setup that you have. So the infrastructure upgrades is one piece of that. If there are specific pages, so the infrastructure upgrades are going to elevate load times across the board, across the overall company. We believe that to be the case with infrastructure upgrades that we're making. Sometimes long load times are specific to a site and their specific data makeup. So if you're experiencing that, we certainly can get involved. We've got someone on our tech stack operations team that can get involved involved specifically with whatever the page that you're talking about. So sometimes, for example, it might be in your product catalog, and someone has a large product catalog or a large number of pricing rules that are impacting speed on the page. So some of that gets into a very specific set of diagnostic things that protocol that we can go through to address it. So that would be a good one to bring up if you haven't already, or if you have, to readdress it. We do have a person on our tech stack operations side that could specifically dig into that and see what layer of the application we could do optimization for to help out with that. That's a great question. Where is the documentation for the officially supported API? So the API, we have an API module. So that is an optional upgrade module that can be installed in the application. And the API documentation is dynamically built depending on what gets and posts that you have in the API configuration. So we could get into more detail. We do have, with that said, a bunch of standard gets and posts in the API, kind of a standard boilerplate setup. There's a lot of technical configuration you could do on top of that in the API layer. So that we could produce documentation and give you an example of the documentation based on that setup. So that would be one. If you want to send in a question to our account management or support team, we'd be happy to send you a copy of a default setup of documentation. But know that that API layer, it's technically configurable to be able to hit any database table in the application for gets to pull data out. There's lots of options to pass variables when you're making gets to filter the results back. And then the posts can basically hit any table in the database as well, as long as the API is configured to do it. So again, we could send you documentation on a default setup for the API. And then on top of that, we could get into specific API calls that are needed. Again, that's just technical configuration in that layer. Is there another one? What APIs are you currently offering production support through the app portion of SIM? So I think that's talking Cloud Data Hub. So when we look at API or third-party integrations, we kind of have two layers we look at. One is kind of inside our application or our object integrations, which I don't think is the one you're talking about here. But just to recap, that would be stuff like UPS and FedEx and USPS shipping calls, or Avalara as a tax service that's built inside the shopping cart checkout or order entry. And there's lots of other integrations there. The APIs, there are, we have standard, so the APIs, there's kind of two layers to the API. One is a RESTful style layer, which basically means it's like a phone waiting to ring. It can answer questions if you call it, and can receive requests when you call it, but it's RESTful style, so it's sitting there just waiting to be called from a third-party application that's actually moving data. That is the one I just described earlier, that we have a default configuration that's got a bunch of data, like all the order history data, orders, invoices, shipments, payments, customer data, addresses, product data, things like that. So that's the RESTful style API. They can receive gets and posts. The second thing is, on top of that API layer, we can do cloud-to-cloud syncing of data. So that's where we're leveraging our API layer, but also a tool that is doing the syncing or the moving parts and doing the translation between our language that we speak for our data and what the third-party application does. So some examples of that, we've got some prototype stuff going that we dog food ourselves for HubSpot as a marketing automation platform, syncing contacts and enrolling contacts into workflows as an example. We have standard cloud-to-cloud sync integrations with B2C e-commerce platforms. I think we have Magento, Shopify, and WooCommerce that are there. Those basically pull orders out of those platforms and sync them into the ERP and can push shipment tracking data back out. We can also send a follow-up list. I know I'm just hitting spot stuff here. We can send a follow-up list that I can get our marketing guys to send out of other API integrations that we have. And if you have a specific one, we can also address that as well. Okay. Are there any plans to offer a service-style pricing to include common billable charges such as ERP software upgrades, some basic website fixes, and other common charges. So that's from Mark. Mark, that's a great question. We have been considering multiple things to try to smooth out the requirement for consulting or what we consider to be billable professional services work, and trying to avoid a nickel and diming scenario going on with our customers. And we have heard feedback from that from several customers. So that's part of the professional services things that we're attempting to do, is smooth that out. One of the challenges that we've had of a service style pricing plan is you get the all-you-can-eater guys that blow out the buffet, and then you get people that don't even use it and they're getting overcharged. So that's some of the challenges that we've seen in the past, is it's hard to get a level balance when you put level pricing on-demand or consulting style services, where the costs are very much just hourly cost or labor cost behind the scenes. With that said, what we are prototyping with customers and have done successfully in the past with some customers that we're reintroducing is the concept of an agile style sprint cycle with customers, where they can come up with a level budget of services. It's not a use it or lose it thing, but effectively they can go to the leadership team or whatever and budget for services and then use it for whatever they want and manage those services with a designated consultant through agile style sprint cycles. So that would be a level payment that you're making on services. You can speed up and slow down the services. You never lose credit for the money that you put in. And we're looking at offering discounted billing rates when we provide that service, because it gives us a level of predictability for scheduling on our side, on our maker teams. Okay, we got time for looks like about 2 more questions here. Which one do you want to hit? Okay, Jerry asked the question, do you have integrations with 3PLs? So that stands for third-party logistics companies. And Jerry, I'm going to have to defer to our product team. I know we don't have a standard product for 3PL integrations, but we have done or supported stuff on a custom basis. So what might be available there is us to piggyback or leverage stuff that we've done with 3PLs before to see if we can leverage that. I know we do have some customers that are 3PLs and they use our platform for their customers, but I'm interpreting or assuming what you're talking about is you've got in your particular case, you may be leveraging a 3PL and wanting to feed effectively POs over to the 3PL or feed shipment information over to them for products that they need to fulfill. So that one I would recommend, if you have a specific need, hit our ATM or hit our AM team up, our account management team, or the support team up, and go through the specifics of what you're looking for to see if we can leverage stuff we've already done or help you out with that. Okay, the final question I've got. This one looks like one that was set up almost. What do we need to do if we'd like to see a detailed demo? So that's a great way to end it. That might have been a setup question there. We would love to provide a detailed demo for anyone that wants one. All you got to do is reach out to us. So you can hit contact us. You can call us, hit us on live chat, or post a message through the ticketing system. And our account management resources would get involved in that. If you're a partner or a net new prospective customer that's out there, our account executive team handles all the new customer acquisition stuff. Our account management team is handling everything with existing customers. So any of the channels you've got, we'll make sure it gets properly routed, and we would be happy to do that. So thanks for the spoon feeding me the dish up question here at the end. For all of you, again, I want to recap for all the customers and partners out there. We definitely know we're not perfect. We had some hiccups in 2018. Overall, it was a very successful year, we believe, for us as a company. We certainly, if we're not addressing your needs as a customer or partner specifically, or if there's rub points or areas that you've been experiencing as we've been going through growing pains, we're definitely willing to roll our sleeves up and dig in and work with you to get those resolved. We want every one of our customers to be happy and satisfied, and if we don't deliver on that, we're certainly willing to work to cover ground and see if we can close the gap on that. We definitely appreciate the continued business that everyone's given us. We know that is in fact what has allowed us to survive and thrive as a business, so we're very appreciative of that and all the feedback and engagement that you give. And we're also very much looking forward to a great 2019. We're very optimistic about what's ahead and excited to work with you guys on what's to come. So this officially concludes our State of the Company 2018 webinar. Thank you again for your business and for your participation, and don't hesitate to reach out for anything else you need from us as we move forward.